Hello, welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Kate Harper of the 61st District in Montgomery County. And I have the pleasure today of being at the beautiful Roth Farm, which is owned by Delaware Valley College. And we're going to talk about what the plans are for the Roth Farm. This is the farm that many of you see when you drive down Route 202, right at the intersection of Route 63. And many people have asked me, what's going on there? What's going to happen there? Well, we're about to tell you that. Joining me today are Dean Russell Redding of the College of Agriculture and Environment for Delaware Valley College and Kristen Holsart, who's the farm manager here. And we'll be talking about the farm and the college and what's going on. Dean Redding, you have quite a history. You, I think, grew up on a dairy farm, and you also served as Secretary of Agriculture for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So can you tell the folks at home about yourself?
I'd love to. Let me first say welcome to you. Thank you for your interest in Delaware Valley College and the Roth Farm, and for highlighting and profiling this farm that's so prominent here at 202 and 63. You are correct. You get a lot of inquiries, we do, and I'm sure you're the same. So thank you for sharing this story with the public. I've been fortunate in my life to work in agriculture. To be involved in it, both growing up in it and on a dairy farm and outside of Gettysburg and the great county of Adams, and then working in Washington, D.C. and in state service with the Department of Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture for a couple of years. And I've said many times that I've sort of been training for this job of dean, right, to really help the students understand this college and the importance of agriculture and all that we offer here, but also the industry of agriculture and what does it take to actually be in this industry of ag. How does all this food sort of appear at our favorite stores and on our plates? And that's really what we do in part at the college. So all of that has been part of my training of coming to this spot as dean. I've been here about 2 years and really appreciated the history of this college, which we can talk about. But when you look around at the unique assets of the college, I mean, how many colleges in Pennsylvania have preserved farms to work with? How many colleges have, the full slate of livestock and production aspects to teach with? We have nearly 1,000 acres. The Roth Farm is part of this, but we've got nearly 1,000 acres to teach 1,000 lessons about the importance of the environment and agriculture.
Well, I want to talk about the big picture, agriculture in Pennsylvania, and also about what's going to happen right here at the Roth Farm. Now, I know Mrs. Roth lived here for many years herself and gave the farm basically to Delaware Valley College because she trusted you to do something good with it. So why don't we talk a little bit about what are the college's plans for the Roth Farm? And before we start, no houses are ever going to be built here, are they?
What you see here is what you'll see forever. This is a preserve farm that was preserved with Montgomery County and the Farmland Preservation Program in Pennsylvania, which I'm proud to have been part of for many years. But what you see today is what will be here in perpetuity. I had served on a farmland preservation board in my home county. It was asked one time to define preserved farm and perpetuity. And that's a hard thing to define. I mean, it's forever. It's what you see here today is what it's going to be. No houses. You've got a farmstead. It'll be a productive agricultural space, and that was what was intended by the Roth family when they gifted it to us. It was what was intended by the college when they preserved it.
All right, then I know the college has a vision for the farm, and Kristen's going to help with that. But can you just give us the overall vision of what does Delaware Valley College think the farm should be as it goes forward?
Yeah, we have had the farm for about 20 years, and the Roth family had it much longer than that before. So we've had it for about 20 years and have used it as part of our production enterprise to feed our horses and feed the livestock on the main campus, and have a museum here that was part of the expectations of the Roth family when they gifted it to us. But it's operated really as sort of a hay operation, grain operation here for the college. The plans, and this is what's really important with change over the last couple of years, we have recognized that there's a growing interest in the public for sustainable agriculture and sustainable type foods. And we can talk about what that looks like. But the intention is to have it be all managed in a sustainable manner. We have plans to have a cattle, grass-fed beef operation here in partnership with Henry Rosenberger, We will have a community garden aspect. There's a charitable garden component. There's opportunity for us to do, any number of community activities here that all center around sustainable agriculture. So it's going to be stewardship. It's going to be the environmental components. Everything really is going to be driven by education. I mean, we're only in one business at the college. While we have land and we've got, a lot of unique assets, at the end of the day, we're only in one business. It's about education. So everything we do here in the farm, everything we do at the college has got to be about education. A lot of good things will happen with it. There's probably a 2-year plan or so to put all this in place. Kristen can talk more about sort of the details, but we want to have an operation here that really respects what the Roth family was intending when they gifted this to us. We want to do something that is in keeping with our educational mission, but we also want to make sure that we're being contemporary in our presentation of agricultural practices to our students. One unique aspect of the college is we have all of the different production aspects. Very few, unless you are a land-grant university somewhere, can show all of the different production aspects. We can go from organic production to sort of a mixed use where you've got a lot of different things going on, more conventional, and then sustainable. And that's the full range of production. This entire center here will be for sustainable agriculture.
Okay, well, let's bring Kristen into the conversation. And Kristen, you're a fairly recent grad of Delaware Valley College. Talk to me about how you ended up there and what your plans are.
Well, I grew up in Macungie near Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I wanted to go to Del Val from the time I was in 7th grade. Somewhere along the line, I didn't grow up on a farm, but somewhere along the line, I knew that's really what I wanted to do, and I pursued that then. I came to Del Val in 2007, having been at community college, and then finished a bachelor's in horticulture in December of 2009. So after I finished, I ended up going to grad school in Connecticut, and I'm just recently back. In January, I started working here again.
Well, pardon me for this, but it does seem like that's an awful lot of education to be a farm manager. What did you learn that's so important to your current job?
Well, to be honest, I think the big part of essentially going to college for farming is learning the basic science behind it, learning the biology, the chemistry, the plant physiology. It enables me to not just know the techniques or to just do the job, but to actually be able to explain and understand why we're doing it, why does it work. And since, again, our goal as a college is education, to be able to explain to my student workers, do you know why you're doing this? Do you know why this works? Can you identify the plants or the animals that are around you or how they interact? Grad school, of course, is more about learning the project management side, learning the research side. So I'm familiar with those. And again, Del Val would love to do a little bit more along that line. There's a few professors doing crop trials and so forth. And I would be equipped then to help set those up. I would understand what their needs are.
So that you could do experiments, basically.
Exactly. For example, there's a cover crop trial, I believe, going on at Del Val right now. If we wanted to do something along those lines out here, I would understand how to design the plots, what kind of data we need to collect.
All right, help my viewers, many of whom grew up in suburbia.
Yes.
What's a cover crop?
Okay, so a cover crop would be what you're putting in between your crops. It's for any crop that we grow, there's going to be some point in the year where it's not in the ground, where the ground is essentially empty. And so rather than letting it sit empty, we plant something in that isn't a weed, something that will grow and put some nutrition back in the soil, but that we can kind of keep under control. Anytime in a biological sense that you have a vacuum or a lack of something to fill it, something else is going to come in. And for us, that's going to be, thistles or dandelions or something we really don't want in there. So a cover crop fills that space and then, like I say, puts
holds
the
onto
nutrition
the
back
soil,
in. Exactly.
puts a little nutrition back in.
Yeah, prevents a lot of the erosion and the nutrient loss into the waterways.
It's very popular these days to talk about farm to table.
Yes.
Or farm to fork, I've heard it called, or things like that. What's that all about, and how does Del Val fit into that movement?
Del Val wants to be able to help students understand the science, the production, and then how to get it to the consumer. So this farm in particular, with the sustainable ag model, is designed to connect with the community. Yes, we wish to grow our crops, and a lot of farmers wish to go like the wholesale route and don't get as involved with their consumers, but a lot of the people that would fall more into the sustainable model are more interested in communicating and working with their communities, working directly with the consumer. So part of our job then, I'd say as Del Val students, as Del Val staff, is to educate the people that that are our customers or are our neighbors, to help them understand what it is we're doing and why.
And will that also determine in some measure what crops you grow here? Because I know, for example, that if you grow all soybeans, they're very useful.
Sure.
And there'll be a ready market for that.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't seem to connect people who live around the Roth Farm to the farm. So are there other crops that you might be growing in future years that would be more of a connective thing to the community?
Sure. I'm not saying we wouldn't do soybeans. For example, there's edible soybeans that people would be interested in. But yeah, you're right. Those don't catch the community interest as much. So we'll be focusing for the next couple of years on some vegetable crops, mostly annual vegetable crops. I'm not saying we won't put in perennials at some point, but some simple annuals, things like tomatoes, broccoli, peppers, cauliflower. We'd like to eventually put up some greenhouses and some high tunnels so that we can do greens or other cool weather types of crops all year round. But
maybe have a farm stand so people could eat
Well,
the stuff that they see growing here?
Perhaps. But since we have a wonderful outlet in our market at the college, I think we'll try to work with them as much as possible. As far as bringing the community in here, that would work more with a CSA model or a community garden type of model, where we can focus on the education. Yes, we will be producing a crop, but then we can also educate the consumer. Here's how it grew, or here is a certain pest that might be a problem, and here's how you look for it. Here's the damage it does.
All right, so hold that thought. So we have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back, and I'd like to talk to Dean Redding a little bit about agriculture in Pennsylvania. It's a big business here. Thank you.
Did you know that the main entrance to the Pennsylvania State Capitol building is home of 2 bronze doors that each weigh over 1 ton? As the primary entrance to this beautiful architectural building, the bronze doors signify the many accomplishments and sacrifices endured throughout the history of the Commonwealth. The magnificent archway overtop the doors contains a portrait of William Penn, founder of the Keystone State. The upper panels on the doors commemorate the forming of our nation, with the signing of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. The bottom panels depict the laborious industries of the Commonwealth, including coal mining and agriculture. Now you know.
Welcome back. I'm State Representative Kate Harper, and you're watching Legislative Report from the Roth Farm in Upper Gwinnett Township. My guests today are Dean Redding and Kristen Holzhart. We're here at the farm, and we're talking about agriculture in Pennsylvania and what's going on at the Roth Farm. Dean, you've been the Secretary of Agriculture. You've been a farmer yourself. What do you think about agriculture in Pennsylvania? Does it have a future?
I think it's a great future. It's a great way to make a living. It is hard work. Most folks touch agriculture 3 times a day, but it's at the refrigerator door. For everybody else, there's 63,000 farmers in Pennsylvania, farming about 8,000 acres of ground, and we've got 500,000 cows and 15 million chickens, all of those things that most of us as consumers enjoy. You've got a pretty select group of folks in Pennsylvania who are in one of the most honorable of professions, agriculture, who make that happen every single day. Here in Montgomery County, we're blessed to have open space and preserve farms. We're on one today. Across Pennsylvania, we've got a great farmland preservation program that you've been part of and have supported over the years. We appreciate that very much. Very proud of that. But you put all that together across 63 counties and 13 million people who need to be fed every day, 3 times a day. It takes a lot of food, a lot of production. We're known in Pennsylvania for our livestock and our dairy, our beef and poultry, fruits and vegetables, all of those good things that we enjoy every day. But it's got a great future.
All right, well then how does Delaware Valley College fit into that?
Well, the college has an interesting history. It started as a national farm school. in 1896 by a rabbi in Philadelphia. And this is the interesting piece of the history. Everyone thinks it's sort of somebody in Bucks County. Here's this gentleman who saw on the streets of Philadelphia something happening. All of these immigrants were coming to America, but they couldn't feed themselves. And he looked at it and said, well, the only way to change that is not to simply give them food, but to train them, educate them, and let them sort of then learn the trade and feed themselves and feed their families and the community. And that was in 1896, so 117 years ago, he had this great vision about what needed to happen for the immigrant population. And keeping in mind that where the school is located is about an hour from Philadelphia, so there was a fair amount of open land between Philadelphia and Doylestown at the time.
Well, 100 years ago there was.
There was, yes, at the time. That's not the case today, for sure. We believe that part of the history is the college was neighbors to the Burpee Seed Company, and Atlee Burpee was
right.
a breeder, right? So there was that. I think that was part of the draw for the rabbi when he established the farm in Doylestown, was to have access to that science and that technology. So that's the history of the college. So for 117 years, we've been rooted in agriculture. We've had both the science and the, what I call the civics of agriculture, making sure folks both understand how things are produced and the science behind it, but also being able to translate that for the public and the understanding of those who need to understand it.
Well, I do think that sometimes there can be conflicts between farms and suburbia.
No, that happens.
A new development gets built that's called Farm View or something, and first thing that happens is that people object to the smell of manure or something.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the challenge for us. Is everybody sort of likes food. I haven't found anybody yet that doesn't like to
sure.
eat, right? But they don't have a connect to understand that what you see on the land, and occasionally they may be, have to either smell or be inconvenienced somehow. But they don't make that connection to, that's what it takes. It's part of the operation of a farm. And so you end up with these conflicts. I would say we try to work hard to minimize them. Having been Secretary of Agriculture in Pennsylvania, though, I can tell you with local governments and the Department of Agriculture, we worked hard together to make sure that the folks locally understood the ordinances and the boundaries of those ordinances, worked to try to minimize that to the extent we can. But as agriculture has changed, public opinion has changed. So it's a constant education effort to have them appreciate the size and scope and the complexities of production agriculture.
The other thing that I find very interesting is that young farmers tend to be very computer literate, and they actually use the internet and computer programs in their farming. Should we ask Kristen about that one? Because I was sort of amazed. It seemed incongruous that farmers would be so computer literate and so up on what they can get from the internet for farming. Did you learn that at Del Val?
A little bit of it, yeah. I guess you could say I was with the generation that sort of got used to having computers for daily life. So most people my age or a little younger, a little older would have gotten used to having computers, in school or for home, and so it's a natural extension of that. There's a lot of different educational tools that are offered online, things that offer fact sheets or information that a farmer might want on a new technique or how to put something together, and it might take him forever to look that up through another source. They don't really have time to go to the library, or at least not during hours that the library is open, or to go to the extension office and so forth. Even the extension office has put their documents online so that the farmers can access them. But another important piece of that is because the public as a whole has started using the computer so much, farms they connect to their consumer that way a lot of times. Whether you're wholesale or retail oriented farm, most farms these days have a website. It seems to be the way the world's going, and it makes it very easy for the public to connect with them. Because, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but if you want to go pick strawberries at a farm somewhere, you're like, well, what are their hours? You call, nobody's ever going to answer that phone because they're outside working.
Okay.
So if you can go on their website and see, what is the picking schedule for this week? When can I come? Or maybe they have a Facebook page, and so they can update that day or every few hours. Okay, today's a good day to come out. Oh, this is the last day we'll have strawberries. It makes a great way to connect with the public, with the consumers.
All right, I'm going to ask the dean another question here. If you grew up on a farm, I guess your parents were farmers, dairy farmers. That's a hard life. They didn't use computers for that, did they?
It's tough duty. No, there were no computers. You were lucky to have it written down It was verbal communication. So.
Talk a little bit about how a dairy farm works for people who actually think milk comes from the supermarket.
Yeah, the dairy industry is pretty interesting, because it's one of the few sort of agricultural enterprises where it literally is 7 days a week. You cannot turn these cows on and off. It's 365 days a year.
2 times a day?
It's usually 2 times a day, but you have a lot of dairies in Pennsylvania that are doing 3 times a day. And the reason for that is that they are, you've got fixed costs and facilities, fixed costs, to pay. So there's a little bump in production that offsets that extra, labor costs and feed for the third milking.
Well, if the farmer wants to go to the shore for a week, what does he do?
Well, you have 2 options. One is you either have family who are going to do that, or you try to coerce a neighbor or somebody into helping you out for a couple of days. What most farmers will tell you is they simply forego the vacation as a family. Okay. Somebody may escape for a couple of days and get a break, but it's hard to do. I grew up in that business, and my wife went to Indiana University, Pennsylvania, and I went to Penn State. And our goal in life was to be a dairy producer. That's what we trained for. It's what we were educated to do. And came back into that business. And after a number of years, we looked at each other and said, "This is hard work." And as a young family, you were trying to get started. The debt requirements, the challenges. So we simply stepped back. But we went out on our own and tried it. And I, every single day, am so grateful that folks who want to stay in that business, particularly on the dairy side, and do it 7 days a week. We don't think about that when we go to the Wawa or the local store.
They get up every morning very early and go.
Every single day. It's 12 hours apart. So if you're milking at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're going to milk at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's part of the cycle of cows like predictability. They're like humans. We like a standard commute schedule. We like to sort of know what's going to unfold. Dairy cows are the same way.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what is sustainability. You had earlier said that we want this farm to be a sustainable agriculture farm. What is sustainability in the college's view and in your view?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the word sustainability is one that's everybody's got a different definition of what it is. I mean, from our standpoint, and I'll ask Kristen to give her view as well. But in our definition, it would be sort of the low inputs. It's going to be more on the non-chemical, non sort of commercial side. It's going to be more of a low inputs and natural fertilizers and so forth. The objective here is to minimize the use of chemicals, agriculture. Okay. So we're going to do it from that standpoint. In contrast to commercial, where you're simply making more of a business decision, a crop input decision, and you're going to use any particular input you can to control or control a weed or a pest or maximize yield. That's a little different.
Let's talk a little bit about orchards, because I've seen orchards that were organic and orchards that weren't. And honestly, if they're not, it's hard to get a lot of apples that don't have holes in them or pits or things like that. Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
I would say this. Again, sustainability would give you some latitude around use of some type of synthetic controls if you need to for a pest or a fire blight or some other control measure you want to have. It doesn't prohibit that, in contrast to organic, where you can't use certain synthetic measures, right?
Okay.
So always keep in mind in Pennsylvania, we get 42 inches of rain a year. So when you talk about organic...
Is that good, bad?
It is great for us.
Okay,
but
great
if you
for
think
farmers.
about it, it's really difficult to have a organic orchard entirely. You can do it, but it's going to require some trade-offs in terms of quality, in terms of size. Folks do it, and they do a great job of it, but just generally as an industry, that's a little harder to do. So let me have Kristen talk about sort of sustainability
right.
from the Roth standpoint.
Sure. Let's talk about. You have a lot of book learning in this area, I think would be fair to say.
Yes, I suppose, but yeah, he's right. There's a lot of definitions for sustainability or sustainable agriculture, and I don't know that we're out to create the definition. I think there's a lot of people with a lot of very specific views on it, and I'm I'm not going to say they're wrong, but for our purposes, or for my purposes as farm manager here, I'm defining it by 3 points, and that is we want to consider the environmental side of it. Anything we do has an environmental impact, and we want to consider
On the
that.
farm and on its neighbors, probably.
Right, exactly. So we, the soil, the water, the air, the people walking by. So we do want to consider that. As you said, not just a business decision, although certainly that comes into play, because that's the second part of it, is if you're going to run a farm, this isn't a hobby, it is a business. So we do need to be able to run it on the scale of economic profitability. I mean, we can't do it. I mean, we do it for fun to a point, but we're not doing it just for fun. We do need to feed our families off of it. And then the third part of it is to keep the community in play, and to create good quality of life for the farmers. And we all realize that farming is very hard work, but there are some farms who have gone under simply because that generation or the next generation said, I can't do this. I can't keep my family going this way. So exploring ways of managing things that allow for a certain level of family life and for a certain level of, being able to take a break once in a while. Maybe that is simply communicating with the neighbors to say, hey, I'd really like to take some time off. Can you come and learn what I'm doing? Whereas if a farmer creates sort of an island unto himself, nobody's really going to know what his needs are. So learning to communicate with the people around you, or to other farmers in the area,
Is part of sustainability.
that has to be part of it. It has to be, I guess, to sum it up, environmental, economic, and social sustainability.
Okay, another question I know people ask me is, are there any animals there? Now, there used to be some big draft horses that I noticed when I was driving by,
Yes.
but I didn't see them today.
Yeah.
Are you going to have animals here at the Roth Farm?
Yes, we are. The draft animals you mentioned have been moved on to other farms, but we will have new animals coming. We're going to be doing a pastured beef herd in some of the fields that are right around us now, and those will be partnering with another farm on Tussock's Edge Farm in Blooming Glen, which is an awesome partnership for us as the college. And also, we'd love to do some pastured poultry. It's a great mix. You have the cattle in a certain area of the pasture, and then you move them to the next pasture in a few days, and the chickens come in behind, and they get to scatter the manure out and pick through different things and kind of clean it up. And then you could add goats or sheep into that. We probably won't at this point. That would be further down the road. But after that, then the pasture gets a break, and then the cycle gets around again. So yes, so we would definitely be adding those in, and possibly other animals as time goes along, as interests come and go at the college.
All right, I'm going to give the last word to the dean here. Tell me again what you think the college sees happening here and in general in agriculture. And I know the college is much more than agriculture. Do you want to talk about some of the other things that students are learning at Del Val?
As I mentioned, everybody sort of knows the college by its agricultural history, where it started in National Farm School, and over the course of 117 years, it's always been rooted and anchored in agriculture, and it will continue to be. What's not well understood is there's a lot of other, academic offering there, from business to psychology and English and chemistry and the life sciences and humanities. Our goal is to really have agriculture sort of be on par with the other components of the college. So we'll have three different colleges: agricultural sciences and 3 different schools, I should say: agricultural sciences, life and physical sciences, and business and humanities. And all of that sort of combines to make Delaware Valley College.
Okay, I think we're going to have to stop there, although we could talk about that
Would love to.
for a long time, but we're out of time. This is State Representative Kate Harper, and you've been watching my legislative report. I'm at the Roth Farm in Upper Gwinnett at the corner of 202 and 63. Next time you drive by, think about sustainability and what the Delaware Valley College is going to be doing here in the future, and I'm sure we'll come back for another visit when you get it going. So thanks very much.